Hello there. Hope you are having a lovely holiday today and remembering the two statesperson whose birthday we are celebrating today. Yes, one of them is Mahatma Gandhi and the other one, Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri, the second Prime Minister of India, was much revered and a wonderful soul. So here we are in the podcast number 12. And this is Nina bringing you another story today, actually. Since today is you must be in a holiday mood, perhaps I thought I'll start with a story. The story of my first trip to South India I had taken with my parents when I was in school. It was part of our annual trip. As part of several absolute to-dos my mother had when we went to a new place, to know a place better, was to eat local food, to take one bus ride in the public bus, just to get a feel of how people live there, even though we, tend to stay only a very few short days. So this, my first trip to South India, our first major stop was Chennai. That time used to be called Madras. And I distinctly remember we stayed in this particular hotel, which still exists, called Hotel President. Now, if you know Hotel President, it's really not the kind of hotel you would think that they are specializing on the local food, but that's where we stayed. And when we went to the restaurant, we asked for what would be something nice and local here. And they suggested that we can bring our homemade tomato soup. So we didn't think, that tomato soup would be something Indian and local food. But anyway, when we saw others being served tomato soup, this was in a cup and a saucer. Now, where I came from in Calcutta at that time, tomato soup used to be served in a bowl. And this is an era where ready-made tomato sauce were not available. So it is always fresh made. And with a little bit of butter and a fresh grind pepper and croutons on top. None of them, it looked so unfamiliar to me that I, being a fussy eater, decided, no. But there was something else being served to other people, which was in a glass, which was carefully covered in a paper napkin. And we couldn't see what it was. So being curious, I asked, but what is that? Is that a soup too? They said, no, but that's a grape juice. Now, grape juice was not at all common in the rest of India. You didn't have, grape juice being served as a common thing. So we thought, wow, is that from the local grape? And they said, yeah, we have this local black grape. Do you want some? And we had that grape juice for the first time. For me, from that day onwards, for the entire trip that we had for about a month traveling in different places in South India, almost every day I had a grape juice. So grape is the story of grape that I'm going to talk about at the beginning. And you wonder, why are we talking about grapes in a Audible weed walk session? We'll get to that. Grapes come from a family called Vitaceae. It is comprised of 14 genera and almost 850 species represents this woody climber and with leaves and tendrils, which helps them to climb. Sometimes they can be shrubs also. And some are succulent. And a succulent from the grape family. I'll come to that. Now you think, where do the grapes come from? Well, we think that, the usual, like when we think about where do grapes come from, we think about Europe. And there is a famous native grapevine also in Virginia we talked about in another podcast, where it had saved the European French grapevines from the blight. So grape must be also growing natively in the United States, in North America too. Vitis vinifera the grape where all the cultivars of today's grape comes from, came from Central Asia or the Mediterranean area. It seems one of the most desired Indian grape is called Paneer Grape. The name sounds local, right? And it is. Which is also known as the Muscat humbug, because it has a characteristic musk smell, which is typical of the Muscat grapes. This grape had originated in California some 300 years back. It seems that it had come to South India around 1835 through Christian missionaries who had brought this in Nilakottai area in Dindigul district of Tamil Nadu. So that's where this particular grape started being grown. And it is one of the most popular grape for, not just in India, wherever it is grown, it's one of the most popular grape for juice, for wine, and also the grape is made into raisins. But the grape first appeared in India much earlier than that. It is in 1300 AD, Persians had brought it with them in the Maharashtra regions. You see, there are two kinds of grapes that are common in India. One is the greener variety, and there are several of these green varieties. If you go further northwest actually part of the country, and if you go northwest part of the subcontinent, Afghanistan and those areas, the grapes becomes very tiny, very wonderful, and they are used in cooking a lot. As even today you can see them in the Iranian cooking a lot. So these grapes actually came with the Persians to the Maharashtra region, and then there are several varieties of them are also grown. But it seems that grapes, which is in 1300 AD, but it seems that the grape had reached South India much before this time, even though it is credited that around 1835, the Christian missionary first brought the grape, which is the Paneer grape. So whenever it may have come, either from Persia or Europe or originally from California, it actually came from somewhere else. Other than, unlike the other plants that we had discussed in the podcast, it is not something which is kind of even considered indigenous to India. It is not even naturalized. It is something, a cultivar, and it has been brought and cultivated in India in only some parts. Only very recently that the western part of the country and Kerala even have started winemaking as an industry. Otherwise, it is a quite nascent industry in that way. But there is a scientist I read, his name is Stephen Capgate, and his colleagues, they found that the oldest fruits of the grape family, which is Vitaceae, from the late Cretaceous time in the Deccan plateaus of India. So the well-preserved fruits of Indovitis chitaliae, which is containing seeds similar to today's grape family, have been recovered from this late Cretaceous Deccan beds of several sites in central India. It seems they could have been 66 million years old and represents the oldest known fossil of the grape family. And it comes from India. So now comes, why am I talking about grape family so much now? Well, we have two members, at least from what I have found. There may be more, and I don't know about them yet, of the greater grape family around us. One you definitely know very well. The other you may have noticed, but you may not have or didn't know the name. Yes, I'm talking about Cissus. Cissus quadrangularis, or the devil's backbone, or I think the better name is Welt grape. And locally it is known as Pirandae. Cissus belong to a family Vitaceae. The Cissus clan of the Vitaceae family, of the grape family, they are about 350 species strong. Among these, there are a number of species that are globally used in traditional medicines for various ailments and across the continents. The word Cissus comes from a Greek word which means that it resembles ivy. So can we call it ivy grape? I don't know. If we look at the shape of the leaf of this plant, it is kind of ivy-ish. Check out the photos. Photo 1 to 3 after this podcast gets posted are of the Cissus quadrangularis. We rarely see the beautiful ripe grape fruit, the fruits of this particular plant. Though I have included the photo which I had taken in Chennai. These particular ones were growing in a school. It's kind of eat your school garden kind of a project which a friend of mine, Maya Ganesh, has wonderfully set it up in a school in Chennai called APL Global. And in their yard, I saw when I visited, this Cissus quadrangularis in full bloom of its red wonderful fruits. But I have a theory that maybe always we do not get to see the fruits because it mostly grows kind of climbing a trunk or climbing something under the shade of the tree. Whenever I have seen fruits, they're always out in the sun. So maybe if they are growing in a sunny spot or partial sunny, mostly sunny spot, the fruits comes out better. They are all medicinal and the fruits are edible, though I have not, in this particular case when I had seen the fruits, they were so high up that I didn't get to taste them. But it seems the fruits are quite nice and tasty and edible. But they are not. Cissus is not so much well known or used as fruits because first of all, the fruits are rarer. And second, they have so many use of its stems. The leaves are very few. Leaves kind of get incorporated when it is used, but the stems are so well known both as a food and definitely as for its medicinal use, both in Ayurveda, Siddha, and also in Unani medicine, that it's seldom we are actually missing the fruit. In Hindi, we call this plant harjor, which means it's joining bones. In Sanskrit, the name is asthi samharaka, which means something that protects the bones. In reality, it reduces pain, inflammation, and helps to heal bones. And it, of course, its extension, you can imagine that it is very good medication for something like arthritis or anything related to joint and other pains. Lab tests actually have proven the bone setting or bone healing time reduces by more than half when this plant is used in the treatment. It is also has anti-ulcer property, great for gastrointestinal health, antioxidant, and it's also used for treating asthma. The powdered dried stem can be used as baking powder substitute. Now this I have not tried out. It's quite simple because this powder is quite easily available, and also if you don't, it is very easy to dry this in the stems and get it powdered. If you are into baking, you can do some experiment with this. A healthy, handy baking powder, which also sets the bone. Now, Piranda Chutney, which is eaten fresh, and Piranda pickle, that can be preserved, are very popular in southern India. It is also eaten as a vegetable dish, which is not that popular because people tend to eat the chutney and the pickle more. I have included a photo of this has been cooked as a vegetable. Check it out when the podcast gets posted. This is not a very popular food, at least in Bengal, where I come from. I have heard my mother say that Bengal gram, which is a lentil, and fresh stems of pirandae together They make a nice vadas or fritters and are eaten especially for addressing arthritic pain or pain and discomfort related to the bones. Now let's move on to another to other from the family we find around. This is not in my coloring book, not yet at least. Maybe it will be in the future one. It is called a South Indian tree vine in English. The Tamil name is Sem Pirandai, similar, no? Like as the Pirandai, or Kundu Pirandai. In Sanskrit, it is called Amla Vitaceae. Scientific name is Cissus vitiginea. Check out when the podcast is posted again. And I have included a couple of pictures of this plant, which one is growing in my yard and the other is the picture I found in the internet, where it is grown and used a lot traditionally in a lot of tribal areas. So apart from the lab-tested and proven medicinal properties, this plant is also used in Ayurveda, Siddha and tribal medicine across Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra and Vidarbha area. Irulas, Irulas are from around this area of Tamil Nadu. Chenchus and Nallamalais from Andhra, they are known quite a lot for using this plant. It is mostly used for variously for its several anti-inflammatory properties, but also used for treating conjunctivitis and asthma. The ripe fruits, however, are eaten as fresh fruits, and this particular fruit, when it's ripe, it becomes purplish red color like you would expect a grape to be. And they are sold as wild grapes in the tribal areas if you are traveling through. So now, why am I talked about grapes and now this particular plants, the wild ones that we see around? You see, weeds, apart from great to know them from around and use them as they adapt themselves to the climate much better, they are also an excellent indicator of what kind of plants can grow in an area. So, now Masanobu Fukuoka and many permaculturists believe that agriculture should follow the lead of the nature. Following that thread, it seems South India is an excellent place for growing grapes because there are wild natural varieties. Actually, it is one of the leading grape producing state, but it's the cultivars such as the Paneer Grape I had just mentioned before. So I actually contacted this a professor, Dr. Subaya, of Grape Research Station in Tamil Nadu. Honestly, I didn't even know of its existence until a few days back. And according to him, surely this Paneer grape can also be grown in this area, in Audible area, but here, unlike in other places where they get two crops and grows round the year, here it can be sown in winter and harvested in summer. Just one crop, because it is not quite ideal. You need a kind of cooler temperature for that particular variety of grape. Then reading some of the papers on growing grape commercially, I saw the aim of that is to double the production and triple the income for the farmers. Now it seems very natural, but to me, if you are looking as from the point of view of a naturalist or a permaculturist, it seems that it's a kind of maximization of output rather than optimization. In an optimal world, if your aim is to get what is gently can be taken from the earth, you will not. The aim should not be double or triple. Aim should be what is what works with the earth, with what works with the temperature, and what works with the area. Now, I do not know this particular variety, which the expert said that it can only be grown as one crop in this particular area, is a cultivar that, as I had mentioned, has come from somewhere else. I do not know if much research has been done on the wilder varieties. Has there been any research to do to adopt this? Are there any cultivars of Cissus vitigenia that there are many more fruits, or it is easier to grow in the areas where it is naturally grows also? I do not know these answers, but it seems like that would be the naturally most prudent thing to do if you are not fighting with nature, but at the same time you want some crops which are actually grows well around here without too much effort, and it must, because it has its wilder cousins here, it must have the ability to fight its natural predators also. So it kind of naturally adapted to the area. Seems like the ivy gourd, which we had probably talked about, in which there is a cultivar which comes to the market and it is vegetable, but the wilder ones are still grows here, and it is excellent for the leaves as vegetables and the fruits as the ripe fruit. So like that, why not this particular grape, which exists at the wild, can have its cultivars also be encouraged and cultivated around here. In the days that we are talking about how to look at our development system, which includes agriculture, this is probably wild food and wild greens, wild weeds that are growing around anywhere actually may have a lot of potential. Think about it. And with that thought, I will sign off for today and see you next week. Stay well and stay safe.